scenes, where he'd set up a room and have me enter it, look around, and then leave. Then he would alter something in the room and have me come back to see if I could detect what the alteration was. At first it was simple things, like a missing item, or an added item, or an item that was moved to a different position. When I passed those tests with flying colors, he moved on to smells. He would spray a tiny amount of perfume somewhere and see if I could pick up on it. After the perfume, he ramped things up a little by simply rubbing an item with one of those scented dryer cloths. Or he would bring a scented candle, unlit, into the room and let it sit for a few minutes before he took it out again. Not only was I able to identify the smell and where it had been the most concentrated, I was able to tell that he had brought something into the room that he had then removed. Duncan was fairly impressed with these little parlor tricks, but he was truly awed when we started playing around with sounds. He set up several scenarios where he would create some kind of noise in a room in a way that kept me from hearing it. Several times he had me wear headphones with music playing through them, something that triggered a fun display of shapes and colors. And another time, he had me go outside while he made the noise in an enclosed restroom in my bar. Upon entering the room, I could typically tell from where the sound had emanated, how loud it had been, and, a few times, I was even able to identify the specific noise because I recognized the associated taste or visual manifestation it triggered as one I had experienced before. We discovered timing played a role to some degree. The longer it had been since a sound occurred, or since something was moved or removed, the harder it was for me to identify. The time span was longer for smells, and in a way, it all made sense when I considered the theory put forth by the neurologist who had finally diagnosed me in my teens, saving me from a cornucopia of psych drugs, or worse, shock treatments and a mini vacation in a mental institution. His theory was that I was somehow able to detect minute particles of things. So if something is moved or removed, it creates a disturbance in the surrounding air and space that I am able to detect. If a sound is made, it disturbs the air around it, and some part of my body is aware of this disruption. For smells, actual molecules of an item may often linger in a place where the smell occurred. That's why I seem to be able to pick up smells for a longer period of time after the causative item is gone. All humans can do this to some degree, like when people pick up the scent of cigarette smoke on a smoker, or even on someone who hung out with smokers. But my ability seems to be more sensitive than most. The one I can't quite make sense of is my ability to detect emotional highs and lows in other people, even when I have never met them and they are no longer around. When I visit places where highly emotional events have occurred, I can sometimes tell. There is an odd visual sensation, like the heat waves one might see in the desert or above a hot tarmac, that clouds my vision. I can still see clearly, thank goodness, but the waves come on my visual field like they do in the ocean. Some of my customers participated in a few of Duncan's tests, part of his reassurance that I wasn't cheating. While I excelled at the parlor trick aspect of things, I haven't done nearly as well with what Duncan and my customers call deductive reasoning. In an effort to help me in that regard, they started thinking up scenarios for me to analyze. These tests proved far more difficult for me because they were imagined only, hypothetical or historical cases that were relayed to me verbally. Because of this, none of my extra senses proved useful, even though they were always active in giving me constant feedback on my current environment. In fact, they often proved to be something of a nuisance, and for some reason, my mind doesn't seem to want to work in a deductive way. Maybe it's because I've spent so many years trying to shut it, and all the extraneous senses that come with it, down. Still, I do enjoy my new role, despite the fact that it focuses more on death and bad things than on life and good things. I enjoy the challenge of puzzle solving and trying to think outside the box as I apply my unique talent to the art of crime solving. Enjoyment isn't skill, however, and while I haven't done well with the deductive reasoning tests, it doesn't stop me from trying. Plus, it just so happens to be good publicity for my business. 6 weeks ago, Mac's bar was featured in the local paper and slapped with the title The CSI Bar because of the crimes we'd been able to solve. Ginny's murder.